I'm super excited to be here talking with Carolyn Marenghi today. Hey, Carolyn.
Hi, how are you?
I am so good. Transparency here. I was scrolling through Instagram and I came across Carolyn's page and I was just like, whoa, this is something we haven't talked about on the podcast before. And so just had to bring it here. Was super excited to get you on. So, first and foremost, like share a little bit about who you are. How did you get into being a teacher wellness coach?
Such a long story, but the short version is that I was a teacher in New York City for about 8 years, and I was diagnosed with my own autoimmune condition. And I kind of just dove into the research and became really passionate about helping other people with what I had learned and how long it had taken me. And I just wanted to limit that barrier for people of time and commitment and just really help others with super simple, super low cost solutions that can make a world of difference when it comes to energy and well-being. I just think it's all so complicated and overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about it. I mean, you were probably in the classroom as a teacher struggling with energy. I mean, I don't even think you have to have necessarily health concerns or anything like that in order to deal with some serious energy flops, right?
100%. I mean, I would come home and I would tell my partner, like, I just have to sit in silence. And I think that, so many teachers just, the amount of decisions that people make in a day, you're on your feet, you're putting out so many fires. The plan that you had, it goes out the window. You have to improvise. Yeah, it's just the start times are incredibly early. Lack of
Mhm.
any type of break. It's really hard on the body and, emotional and mental well-being too.
Yeah. I think when we talk about energy, it's like the natural things that people talk about like exercise and eating well and all of those things and all of that is great, but one of the things that I saw that you talked about was circadian rhythm. So first, kind of give like an overview for anybody who's not heard that term or maybe they've heard of that term but they don't know how it kind of applies. Can you share a little bit about what is that?
Sure. So basically, so many things in nature and the natural worlds happen on a rhythm. The year is a rhythm. There are different seasons. We know that the day is a rhythm, right? There's daylight and there's nighttime, but maybe we're not necessarily aligning our choices with those rhythms like the year or the daily rhythm. So circadian is meaning about 24 hours in a day. And actually, if you align your choices alongside the natural rhythm of not only the external environment, the daylight and the nighttime, but also with how your body is releasing hormones on a rhythm, then actually you don't have to dig deep to find so much motivation to exercise if you feel resistance. Because if you do things at perfectly timed moments in the day, when your body, everyone's body was designed to release these hormones at specific times, it actually makes things easier and you have to use less effort. So it's really about thinking about eating and sleeping and waking generally around the same times every day. I know some people already are going to be like, no, that's really hard for me, but it will take some shifts, but I guarantee these small shifts, people will feel so good that sticking to a flexible but set structure will bring so much improvement to someone's life, especially a teacher.
Yeah. So, why is it essential for teachers specifically to design these daily schedules that support that circadian rhythm?
I think it's essentially it's really important for teachers because, just in terms of start times, right? Like we hear so much about how really early start times are not so helpful for especially, teenagers. But
Hmm.
teachers are humans also, and so we need to figure out how to capitalize on the morning burst of energy that we get. Some people might be like, I'm not a morning person. And people who think that they're not morning people, it's really that is developed in their life because of lifestyle choices that they've made that have led them to not be a morning person. Evolutionarily, we are designed to have a cortisol release in the morning. And so doing certain things like waking up in general around the same times, even on the weekends. I know people want to sleep in and that's okay. Like you have your moments. But just doing things on a timeline so that your body knows when the cortisol should start, so that when you wake up, you are doing some sort of movement, maybe not movement, vigorous movement for weight loss, like I'm burning massive amounts of calories, but I am moving my body so that I am using the cortisol that's naturally being released, moving my body 15, 20 minutes to get things going, which will give you a boost. You're getting the sunlight in the morning, that's also going to set your clock. So it's all these little things that then teachers won't have to rely on all that caffeine all day long, that mid-morning crash, that afternoon crash. They're having more caffeine. Then in the evening, the melatonin is, being delayed, the production, then they can't fall asleep. And then it's just this perpetual cycle that they can never get out of.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about my own self, like just for a second here. Like I have gone through times where I'm like, I'm a super good morning person. I'm typically very creative in the morning
Mm-hmm.
after I've had some time, but sometimes it's a struggle for me to get up. And I'm thinking about like when I was at the peak of burnout, like I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I read about that. And I read that that's just like cortisol was being released too early.
Mm-hmm.
And the ways that you're kind of sharing that you can reset that. I know that there's a teacher out there right now who's like, yeah, I'm waking up every day at 3 o'clock in the morning. How can they kind of reset their circadian rhythm that way?
Right. I've had multiple people. So that waking up in the middle of the night, especially like with the racing thoughts, it could be because of a couple different things, but high level, like most general, it's really going to come down to like blood sugar regulation, which is directly tied to circadian rhythm. So really, really thinking about, I know this is general advice out there that's common, but like really you have to try not to eat within minimum 2 hours before bedtime, sugar, meal, all those things, because then your body is still working through the digestion in the middle of the night, and it hasn't had a chance to stabilize the blood sugar or remove the insulin from the body, from the bloodstream. And so then your body is waking up in the middle of the night because maybe you're actually experiencing a really low dip in insulin, and your
Mm.
body is waking up from the stress because the cortisol is now shooting through your body to help stabilize that really low dip, because it didn't have a chance to come back to baseline. Other things is like, there's just so much advice, but like trying to make lunch a larger meal than your dinner, because then
Mm.
your body has to digest less at night. Also thinking about like your macronutrient ratios in your meals, like trying not to have a very carbohydrate heavy meal for dinner, maybe a little bit more protein, because then you won't have that really large spike in blood sugar, which then your body will have to work to stabilize overnight. If you do that for lunch, you'll have that short-term energy for your afternoon classes. And then baseline after dinner will be a lot smoother. So that's a big one.
Oh, wow. Like I guess I've learned little bits and pieces along the way. But I guess I didn't put them in the same categories. Like I know certain things about carbs and protein and all of that, but just hearing this, I'm like, that makes total sense, you know? Um, in terms of like those teachers who, I guess some of that kind of goes around with the blood sugar spikes and that sort of thing with the circadian rhythm. Is there another tip that you have for those teachers who just literally can't fall asleep at night?
Yes. So not being able to fall asleep at night, of course, right. Like a lot of like the mindfulness and movement, deep stretching. I'm going to give another suggestion that's going to help stabilize the added on stress and overwhelm of the school day. I would say for sure trying to go for a walk after works, because your eyes are literally receiving information from the type of sun ray that is available at a specific time of day. We don't even realize how connected we are to the sun. And so the wavelengths that are available in the afternoon are priming your master clock, which is in your hypothalamus. That is time to start producing melatonin. So if you go from your school and you're in front of a smart board or a Promethean
Mm.
board with all this blue light, especially if you're in a classroom that has poor access to natural light and or no windows, which I think is like a health hazard. So you're going from this screen to then your car, and your car is now filtering out sunlight, and then you're going into your house. Your body is never getting that signal about what time of day it is. So like 10, 15 minutes working by an open window, driving home with the car windows cracked open, not wearing sunglasses. You're not staring into the bright sun, right? But you're receiving information. So that's all going to help start the release of melatonin. again, trying really hard not to have the caffeine in the afternoon, which is just all going to connect back to what you do in the morning, right? Like every day is just a continuation of what happened before. I will say there is this type of yoga. It has no movement. It's called Yoga Nidra, Nidra. You can find a lot of these guided meditations. That's what essentially they are on Spotify. And basically, they're recordings where they walk you through every single part of your body. You just lay down, close your eyes, and it helps you relax from your fingertips to your kneecaps. And it's super relaxing. And I think that that's a really nice meditation for people who might feel like, they can't meditate in silence. That's really hard. It's guided and it's going to help you find that relaxation at night that might be more challenging without it.
Yeah. When I think about all of these teachers, where I have been, what I have heard from other teachers, even from my husband as the stress that he deals with in his job, and he's not a teacher, I think about like how these feelings of teacher burnout really show up. And I love how you're kind of addressing this from the physiological standpoint. Can you share a little bit more about like how these feelings need to be addressed from this standpoint?
Right. So I think like lots of times teachers get hard on themselves because they're like, okay, I need to have more productivity. I need to, if I journal or have a moment of gratitude, like why aren't these strategies, which are all great, why aren't they working for me really? And it's because if you are trying all the productivity tips or you're trying the journaling, but you literally don't have like the measurable biological energy to do those more, surface level self-care things, it doesn't matter. Like you're going to then feel worse for yourself because you say, oh, this should work. These are really helpful tips. But if you physiologically don't have the energy, then you're just going to feel worse. For example, if you need to write an IEP, lesson plan, design a project, write a rubric, anything that's going to take a lot of deep focus and thought, try as hard as you can to do that in the morning when the cortisol is naturally peaking. Because if you wait until the afternoon, every single person has an afternoon energy slump. That's your biology. That doesn't mean that you're ineffective or that you're not good enough and are not a good teacher. You are running low on cortisol because that's your circadian rhythm. So trying to also think about the times of the day when you can use your biology to make you more successful with things that are harder. Waiting till the afternoon to enter the grades. You don't need to do that during your morning prep.
That makes a lot of sense. Like I truthfully, like I am much better at deep focus activities in the morning. And I think this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky, I think, because with teachers, our day is not set up to be productive. Like
Mhm.
we have these very short windows of planning time or these very short, like we either get there really early in the morning to get stuff done or we stay really late in the afternoons to get stuff done. And then we end up in this cycle of constantly trying to do more and be more because there's more and more added to our plates. And I think that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Do you have any tips for helping teachers to find the ability to get those more deep focus things done in the classroom when their day is not really set up for that?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's so hard. I know that the demands on like having a protected guaranteed prep period can even be so hard with like staffing shortages and emergency coverages and a student popping in and needing help. I would say that I'm not advocating that anybody works over contractual hours, but I am saying that if you are somebody who is working over contractual hours because you're staying late or taking work home early, I think that if you're able to, do 20 minutes before work in the morning, those 20 minutes will be more effective than a whole hour after school.
I
So
agree.
maybe like that's a small shift. And then honestly, like as adults, I think teachers really need to stand up for their planning periods and their time and kind of like, I know it's hard. It's places where maybe the union is not as strong or private schools, but I just think that that's like a mindset shift or like a paradigm shift in teaching.
Yeah, I agree. I can't agree more. Like, I don't think that those teachers who are staying or coming in early and staying late are able to really just go cold turkey and not work outside of their contractual hours. But making that shift to the morning would make a big difference because we do have that afternoon shift and kind of what you shared already about the circadian rhythm and our cortisol levels. As far as like, let me go back to this. You also said, like some of these productivity tips, they cannot override that energetically depleted body and mind. You mentioned that piece of it. And I think that's really important for teachers to hear and for them to like absorb and reflect on, because so often we think, oh, if we add this productivity hack or if we add an automation, which I talk about a lot on the podcast, is like AI and automation. If we're not focusing on the real reason why we have no energy and we're not making the changes for that, I think we can feel even more let down, even more burned out, because we're constantly thinking, oh, well, I'm not doing good enough. I'm still trying all of these things. I'm doing all of these things. And maybe I'm just not made for this job. And I think just knowing, hey, we need to maybe focus more on those energetic pieces, that is really where the change can happen. So you've mentioned the circadian rhythm. You've mentioned a little bit about blood sugar spikes, or just blood sugar regulation in general. You've also mentioned some movement things that kind of impact that overall. How can having a schedule that takes advantage of our natural energy peaks and valleys, how is it not just about getting more done, but more about creating more time for things in our body, like in our life, not in our body?
Yeah, body and life. So yeah, I am never an advocate for like, I think that in 2024, so much of our lives is driven by this like masculine energy of having to do more and get more done. And women, like women have masculine energy, and that
Mhm.
achievement piece is part of it. And I think that we really need to think about like how much more space are you actually creating for yourself through rest and relaxation. And it could be like an active relaxation, as in like coloring or writing or knitting or like whatever this like thing is where you have a moment to be with yourself. Because when you're able to do that, that's when the ideas come to you. So if you're pushing all of the time, you're always going to feel frantic and frenetic. And then everything in your life, your work life, your personal life, your relationships, your family, your health is going to reflect that. But when you're able to slow down, and by aligning with your hormones, which are the chemicals in your body that are the basis for your feelings, by following a schedule that's designed to help you have these better releasing hormones more regularly, more reliably, then you're actually making more space in your life for creativity and for excitement. And so it's not about like this, like I said, like to-do list checking. It's actually really deep work that is just going to be reflecting in your profession. Teaching is such a creative profession. And I think that with all like the data and the progress monitoring, which is important, we forget how creative teaching is and how empathetic and compassionate and intuitive is, especially as women. Women are intuitive beings. And so connecting back to all of that with our natural physiology and aligning with nature, which is the basis of circadian rhythm, is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about a couple of things, and I just want to like hit on three main things that maybe teachers can start today, that don't feel too overwhelming. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I heard you say was maybe getting their creative dump or their focus early in the morning. So maybe coming into work 20 minutes earlier instead of staying an hour later. Would
Mm-hmm.
you agree with that one?
I 100% agree with that.
And then the other one was after work, getting a walk in,
Mm-hmm.
just a walk so that you're able to release that melatonin. Is
Yes,
that
yes,
correct?
yes.
And then three is regulating blood sugar. What is the biggest tip for regulating blood sugar so that they're getting those correct hormones? What would be the number one tip there?
The number one tip is not to have caffeine on an empty stomach. And I know that people might think I'm not hungry in the morning. If you're not hungry in the morning, doesn't have to be first thing, but if you're not hungry within like 40 minutes of waking up, that's just another signal that something is not balanced. So not having caffeine, and I would say that trying to eat a really full fat, full protein breakfast with the caffeine is going to be essential. That is as easy as hard boiling 12 eggs on Sunday and having them ready for the week. Like that you can do right away.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that because I did egg bites. And that was super simple too. Just like to put them in a muffin pan, get them ready, put them in a container, and then I'd have two each day. And it was just really simple to get that protein, that higher fat early in the morning, and really just set me up to not be hungry throughout the
Hmm.
day too, because that protein makes a big difference. Love that. Love that. Yeah, Carolyn, thank you so much again for kind of talking about this overarching kind of process that maybe teachers aren't thinking about. Um, Last but not least, before I have you kind of share where teachers can find you, where they can learn more from you, is there any other pieces of advice that you would share with teachers who are just now jumping into this thought process of the circadian rhythm for energetic balance?
The only thing I would say is that your body has all of the wisdom, and if we just take a moment to make shifts, it will pay major dividends, and it's not about doing more, and it's not about buying expensive supplements. There's just so many free to low cost things that you can do that will change your life.
Oh, love that. Love that. And they can find that all from you. So can you share a little bit about where they can find you, where they can learn more from you? Any courses or freebies that you have?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram. It's the Teacher Energy Fix. And on there, I have a lot of freebies right now. Today, I will be posting a ChatGPT kitchen assistance guide as well. So many helpful prompts for meal prepping. And at the end of the month, I'm coming out with a circadian rhythm alignment course specifically designed for teachers that will touch on some of the things we spoke about today. So yeah, people can find me there. I love connecting with people, answering any questions in my DM. So yeah, the Teacher Energy Fix.
Awesome. And I will put that in the show notes. That way, if somebody's riding on their way to work or they're riding home or something like that, they can go get the link there and go ahead and follow you. Thank you again, Carolyn, for being on the show and for just popping up in my Instagram feed because I would never have known about you. And I just love connecting with other like minded teachers.
I love that. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.